I am so excited today to have Amanda Holden here from Invested Development. Is her business. She also writes over at Dumpster Dog. And part of the reason I'm really excited about this conversation is just we have so much anxiety about getting started investment and all the differences and what's the very best way to do it. But Amanda is going to clear that up for us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I want to jump in because this is kind of your background. Your first job out of college, you started at an investment management company. What were some of those lessons from that, and why eventually did you decide that that's not exactly where you want to be?
Well, sure. So I started at an investment management company in San Francisco out of college. And to be totally honest, I did that for the same reason that I have to imagine that a lot of fresh graduates take a job, and that's because I needed money. I don't necessarily think that it was because money was my passion by any means. Um, that said, the experience, although although the workplace was not my favorite place to be, I did learn a lot during that same time period. And so, even though I ultimately ended up quitting that job, leaving so that I could start my career over, there was a pretty amazing learning curve. And I did learn quite a bit, and specifically because I was on the front lines working with our high net worth clients as an investment counselor. And so, what I would be doing there is I would actually be talking with and meeting with these essentially rich people and answering questions about their portfolios in the markets, keeping them apprised of portfolio strategy, basically just doing a lot of hand holding with old rich white guys all day. And so, again, helping rich men get richer was not going to be it for me. And so I ended up quitting that job, leaving to get this information to the demographics that I care most about, which just so happens to be young women or really anybody who's felt left out of these conversations, because so often these conversations are reserved for those that are already wealthy.
And I loved one point that you made. While these conversations sometimes feel reserved for them, I think sometimes that narrative is that people who have a lot of money are just really smart about this. I don't know, intuitively, naturally, somehow. Did you find that that was your experience?
No, my experience was that oftentimes these ultra wealthy people have done a really good job of figuring out how to make money.
Mm.
But just because you know how to make money does not know that you know how to manage your own money.
Yeah.
And so often these people wait until their nest eggs or the amount of money that they've accumulated is large enough where the actual money management of it sends them almost into a little bit of a tizzy. Right now it's this big huge thing, and they know they're panicked and they know they've got to do something, but they're not so sure what to do with it. And so that's just one of many reasons that I encourage people to start as young as you can and as early as you can, just to get familiar with the idea of money management and with investing, because it's a lot easier when you're doing it with smaller amounts than when you're doing it when you're waiting until you've got this big huge amount to actually understand what's going on with your money. If you are waiting until you have $1 million to manage your money, you're doing it wrong.
I love that. I was someone I wish I would have started investing earlier, and it's something I'm really trying to correct with my kids. As soon as they have some earned income, I'm getting them set up in like a Roth IRA because I want them to have that familiarity. I want them to go through a few down cycles before it's like $100,000, with their $1,000, and just get a feel for what the markets are.
Mhm.
Having gone through 2008, like I feel better equipped for the next downturn because at least I have experienced one.
Absolutely.
We had the pleasure of teaching at the same event this year, and I loved your presentation about investing for women. It was so funny and entertaining and just delightful, like you are as a human being. But I loved the way you explained the containers of investment because it is so confusing. There's all of these numbers and these abbreviations and letters mixed together, like 401ks or TSP or IRA or Roth. And I was hoping you could just give our audience like What's the difference between these containers and the stuff that we put in the containers, and just how do we get started?
Absolutely. So, the first question that anybody has to ask themselves when they're managing their money is, where do I put the money? In what
Yeah.
account am I supposed to actually put the money? And so many people get tripped up by this very first step that they don't do anything at all. They don't even get to the part where they're actually investing the money once it sits within the account. And so investing, that's almost the second step, right? Once the money is in the account, we invest that money. But first, we have to make a decision about where to put it. And so that's that decision between, should I be using a 401k? Should I be using a Roth IRA? Should I be using something different? And what I like to remind people is that these are just account types. So you can think of them as the garage where you park your car. You can think of them as, I like to give the example, as an adult caboodles. Like, it is just the container where you hold your treasures, whether those treasures are your tie dyed scrunchie collection, your miniature novelty eraser collection, your investments, those go within the caboodles. But the caboodles is the container. That's the 401k. That's the shell. That's the Roth IRA. That's what holds your investments. And so when I hear people say something like, oh, my 401k is my investment, that's not quite right. Your 401k is an account that holds investments. And so, as for making a decision about which one to start with, it all has to do with taxes. The good news is, without getting too much into the nitty gritty of the taxes, the good news is that they all are good. They've all offer some sort of tax advantage as compared to using like a regular old brokerage account, which you can totally do as well. Again, a brokerage account is just an account that holds investments that doesn't have special tax treatment. And so my recommendation to most people is just pick one and go for it. Maybe run it by a tax advisor to make sure that you qualify for that specific account, but do understand that it's just an account. It's just a container. It just happens to be a special tax advantaged container. And so that's what you want to do first is decide which account you want to open and start getting money into that account, which you can then later invest.
I love that so much because we do get really bogged down by the details and it can freeze us up. And the reality is, like, I think just the most important part is getting started investing, especially for women. We're going to live longer. We might not be earning as much. We might have more years out of the workforce. Like, we just need to start saving for retirement. People are always like, how do I be good at money? I'm like, pay down your debt, like, know where you're spending money and invest.
Mhm.
But the investing can create so much anxiety for us.
Absolutely. And so, my recommendation to women is, first of all, when you're getting started, know that you might not be perfect, and that's okay. You don't have to be perfect when you get started. Some of the beginning stages are simply to learn what the landscape is. And second, what I would tell women is to know that even though the world of investing can seem so complicated and so vast, it's really not. And investing is within your capacity. It's also not something that you need to spend every day thinking of. In fact, you don't even have to think about it every month. It is very possible to start a set it and forget it, like very much cooks itself type of portfolio strategy that just works for you while you sleep, while you raise your family, while you earn money, while you do whatever it is that you do. And so if I had to leave women with anything, it would be this idea is that investing is within your capacity.
Oh, thank you so much, Amanda, for just being here and taking this like somewhat anxiety producing topic and adding your caboodle flair to it.
Well, thank you for having me.
And for especially the women, if you want to know more about investing, if you want to feel confident in this area, I would totally follow Amanda on Instagram. It's dumpster.doggy. Her Instagram is fire and hilarious and just gives me like life for being a human. I don't know. It's amazing. But also, she is one of our speakers with the Choose 5 Foundation. So if you're like, I want to bring this to my work, to my event, to my organization. Check out the Choose Fi Foundation Speakers Bureau and get Amanda to come in and give her fantastic seminar about women and investing.
Well, thank you. And I would love to come educate everybody. Yay.
I think this chat with Amanda is such the perfect example of the reality. Like, we don't have to be perfect. We just have to be a little bit more courageous every day because adventure awaits.